Thank you so much for taking the time and looking up the scriptures and actually typing them up or putting them in the comment section. This is important to note because not each word that is translated as a witch or witchcraft may be pertaining to a specific type of witchcraft. So, for example, I've answered this before with Deuteronomy and Leviticus. These forms of divination, first let me address Leviticus. Leviticus, the entire chapter is referencing the tribe of Levi. So all of those practices are related to the tribe of Levi directly. Now, when it references jumping through the fire or don't have your child pass through fire, that's a form of Moabite practice, and that requires a child sacrifice. That's what that's referencing. With the Deuteronomy, it's referencing a specific type of witchcraft, and that is pertaining to, once again, a Moabite practice that's related to 𝐼𝐬𝐽𝑒𝐽𝑒 and Yadoni, and that specific type of divination that requires a human sacrifice, or a practice where they would take a bone, a specific bone from a type of bird or the beak of the bird, and they would place it under the pit of the arm. That could also be where the witch of Endor, one of her practices, as she is also labeled as a Av. Going on to Exodus 22:18. The key word in that scripture is kashaf, all right, which means mutter. And that's a Hebrew word for mutter. So this practice is a form of communication, probably telepathically or through small whispers that enchants the hearer. This is also mentioned where Moses, when he came back to free his people, and the Pharaoh had his magicians and whole team come in, that word is referenced there. So it actually has Egyptian ties. And remember, any form of divination or magic that is connected to an oppressor was condemned. A lot of them did require human sacrifices, like I've mentioned before, but it's just common sense. If a group of people were oppressed, why would they take on the God practice? Although the children of Israel are known to integrate a lot of the practices from their captors, but they would remix it, if you will. So instead of doing a sacrifice to another god, they would just adopt that practice and do it unto Yahweh. In Galatians, when it references 𝐓𝐡𝐞, so 𝐓𝐡𝐞, I have dived into that topic quite a bit. It's a form of herbal sorcery. So there's several different categories within that herbal sorcery. This is where we have our pharmaceutical companies and the whole entire industry of pharmaceuticals. That's what it stems from. And with this practice, it could be related to poisoning. So it's another practice under that is 𝐓𝐴rmacos, and that's a practice where they would poison the sacrifice, and it was typically a human sacrifice. You can also see this in the Old Testament. It's not called that, 𝐓𝐴rmacos, but they would, when the high priest went to go to sacrifice for Yom Kippur, they would take the goat and they would give the goat like some type of elixir that will put the goat in the offering into a trance state, so that it will pretty much go over the cliff. They would transfer all the sins of the people onto that offering, that sacrifice, and the goat would go over the cliff, and that was part of the sacrifice. You can look all of this stuff up. So pretty much when people are saying that magic and sorcery and divination is condemnable altogether, you're going to have to pick through and see which ones are condemnable, because not all of them are condemnable. Once again, I've mentioned about the high priest, the apostles, the prophets using these different practices. They weren't exactly the same, and they adopted them and renamed them. So yeah, well, thank you so much for your comment. Peace.